everyone, so in this video we're going to be changing it up. Typically I use subtitles for the whole video, but I've decided that it may be a bit more user-friendly to do subtitles and have audio. So today we're going to be making this adorable little ladybug inspired cat ear beanie. I do have videos of this on my Instagram if you guys want to check it out. I do have a tutorial on how to make the little 5-minute clovers on my Instagram, though if you would like me to make an actual video of it, go ahead and comment down below and I can try to do that for you guys. I apologize in advance for any of the background noise. I don't live alone, so you might hear a couple of things happening in the background, but let's get right into it with materials. So for this, I'm going to be using the Karen 1 pound in the color, there it is, Claret. It is, like I said, a weight 4, and it does say to be using a 5mm hook. And then I personally prefer to put brown when I'm doing anything with ladybugs. I just find that it looks cuter, but you can of course use black instead. If you want to use the same brand, Karen 1 pound does also have a black yarn. This one is in the color Espresso. 5mm crochet hook, some sort of measuring tape, any pair of scissors, and darning needles. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to start with our red. Now if you wanted to do maybe not a ladybug inspired hat and you just wanted something else, you can substitute the colors for literally whatever you'd like. If you wanted to be blue and green, then you can switch out those colors. If you wanted it to be all green, then you could just keep going and then ignore when I do my color changes. It really is up to you. And then of course, since we're going to be measuring it, if you decided like, ooh, I want to use a thinner yarn, then you could go ahead and just keep adding rows until it's reached the length that it needs to be. So something to keep in mind is that this is actually where we're going to be starting. We're starting at the top, we're not starting at the bottom. So that's why we're going to start in the red, because the top of like a ladybug is red. So I feel like it does look cuter just to have the red on top. And then this is one panel, so it's not 2 panels that are just sewed on both sides. This is one panel, one long rectangle that you just fold together and then you sew one side of it. So we're going to start with doing a chain that is 19.5 inches. This way it doesn't really matter what your tension is, because if your tension's a bit tighter, if it's a bit looser, if your yarn's a bit thicker, then it doesn't matter because you're still gonna get the same length yarn. You're still gonna get the same length chain is what I meant, but you're still gonna get the same length chain no matter what, because you're using inches, and so we're not gonna be counting the chains. We're just gonna keep going until we reach our desired amount. Two rows of red, 2 rows of brown, 2 rows of red, 2 rows of brown. You keep doing that pattern until you hit, well, this bottom part. So this is 1 row, 2 row, 1 row, 2 row. You stop once you hit, that's basically 9.5 if I'm not like scrunching it up. There you go, yeah. So that's 9.5 tall. Once you hit 9.5 tall, you add 2 more rows of brown. So instead of doing 1 2 1 2 and then 1 2 of the red, you'll do 4 at the end, and then that's when we're going to put the border on. For this, I do use double crochets. If you're really like wanting to make it extra warm, you could do half doubles. I personally think that's a bit much and it makes the hat really thick, but if you're wanting it for warmth, and I live in California, it does not get cold enough to warrant that, so that's why double crochet is perfect for me. But we're going to yarn over. Okay, that one, that's, ooh, I'm not in focus. Okay, that one there does not count. We're gonna skip over just one, go into the second and put a double crochet. Yippee. start row 2, chain 1, turn it around, and then same thing. And you got to make sure you're getting in that first stitch. Don't skip over it, because then you're gonna end up decreasing every single time that you get to the end, and then you flip it over, and then you chain 1 and you start working on the next row. It's gonna gradually get smaller and smaller and smaller because you're constantly skipping over that first stitch. So that's something you just gotta watch out for. But other than that, you do the exact same thing all the way down, double crochets in each stitch until you get to the end, and then I'll show you how we're gonna start doing the color change to the brown. So you see it's uneven. You can see it if you turn it to the side. Sometimes it's going to be shoved a little more to the front, but you need to make sure you're getting into that last stitch, because again, that's another stitch that you might be missing, which means that the whole hat's just going to be decreasing and decreasing and decreasing as time goes on. Okay, and so now typically you're going to do the chain 1 anyway, but just going to grab it and put it on. And that's literally it. And then now you're going to spin it over. I'm going to secure it right now after I put my first double crochet in. So put a double crochet. I'm going to put it down, and then the 2 ends that oh my god. Okay, so you have the brown that we just attached, and then the working yarn of the red that we're going to come back to. So you're just going to kind of tie it. Just do a quick little tie. Nothing fancy. There you go. And then you could continue with doing the exact same thing. So you're going to do double crochets all the way down. Alright, so we're at the last stitch. Again, it's going to be a little bit, you know, difficult to see, but you can see that you put it to the side, or you could even separate the stitches. You see that there's 2 in here. There's 2 double crochets. So you have 1, and then of course you can see that this is uneven. So it's going to be a little more like difficult. Not gonna lie, there may not be, at least on your first one when you do your color change, it's gonna be basically impossible to see it. Just kind of, you can see, there you go. Just right next to it is where you're going to put your last double crochet of the round. There you go. It is gonna look a little bit silly, but it doesn't really matter, because this side you're going to have it this is the side that's getting sewed together, so you're not going to even see this. It's just to keep the stitch count the same, because of course, like I said, you don't want it to decrease and then suddenly you have a triangular hat. We're going to drop the, after pulling it tight, drop the brown, pick back up your red, wrap it around again. Typically, I like to hold the brown down when I'm holding the piece. You're going to chain 1. Do not pull this really tight, because then you're going to, again, cinch this in. You kind of want to stretch it out a bit. Give it some leeway so it's not, you know, tight or anything, and you can still stretch the hat a bit. And then, once you have that back on, flip it over. And then, again, and oop, I'm not centered, in that first stitch, double crochet, and next stitch, double crochet, and then that's how we're going to do it. Continue this until I get to the end, and then I could show you how to do the scallop border, how to do the sewing up of the edges, and I'll show you a quick little tutorial how I weave in my ends, just in case you don't know how to weave in the ends, or you're curious as to how I do mine or whatever. And yeah, so I'll just do little updates, and then I'm zoning out. I'll update you guys, and then when it's time, we'll get to the pretty. We'll get to this. All right. Bye-bye. Okay, so I've got my 4 stripes of red, and now I'm going to just add 4 rows of just brown to end it with. So at this stage, you should be at it's basically the 8-inch mark. If it's like a little bit over or a little bit under, then it's fine. It's not the worst thing ever. If it's like a lot under, where it's like maybe if it's 6 inches, go ahead and just do another 2 rows of brown and another 2 rows of red, so that way you have to end on red because you're gonna end on brown, and just do 4 rows. So I'll go ahead and I'm gonna do my 4 rows. Hello? Okay, whatever. I'm gonna do my 4 rows of just brown, and then I will show you how to do the little scallop border, and then I'll show you how to sew up the edges. Wow, this is not wanting to focus. I'll show you how to sew up the edges, and then we'll be done. Finished piece without the border. It's gonna be around 10.5 inches. So I have my already done hat, and you can measure it from the top to the bottom before you get to the border, and it's around 10.5 inches. Perfect. You don't have to be, like I said, exactly at 10.5 inches. If you're at 11, that's okay. As long as you're not like below 9. If you're below 9 inches, then you should add another, maybe just another row of brown, just to add a little bit more length, because then you're not going to be able to fold, have a nice like fold. But that's a more of a preference thing. If you want a tiny fold, you could also do that. If you want a thicker, like the half of the hat is just the fold, then you could go longer. But for this one, that's going to be good. So now that we've done all of the rows, you're going to cut off the red yarn. We're done using that. So you're going to want to leave a fairly long tail. Don't just cut it right up against it. Leave a good amount for the way that we're going to weave in the ends. So I'd say that's good. Put that over like normal. Oh, chain one first. Flip. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's falling off the desk. Okay. So for each what do you call it? Little bump, little shell, or whatever you want to call it. It's gonna be 3 half double crochets. So to do a half double crochet, it's very similar to a double. So you still yarn over. We're gonna go in that first stitch. Oh, can you see? Yeah. But instead of pull through 2, you just yarn over and pull through all of them. That's a half double. So we're gonna put 1, 2, 3, all in one stitch. And then we're gonna go to the next stitch and we're gonna do a slip stitch. And there you go. So you don't, if you wanted a more pronounced like ruffles, it's a little more difficult because the more stitches that you put in, the more it's technically increasing. So you're stretching out all these stitches. So by the end, if you put too many, your whole hat, it's gonna stretch out like that, and it's gonna flare out a lot. So if that's something that you want, you could do that. But for this, I don't want it to distort that much, so I'm trying to like put the bare minimum to create the effect and not stretch it out. So the next stitch after that slip stitch is again, if you hear the yarn squeaking, I'm sorry, what the heck. It's 1, 2, 3, all in the same stitch. Next one, slip. Okay. Next stitch, 3 half doubles in one stitch. So 1, 2, 3. Next stitch, slip. And then you just continue on with 3 half doubles in one stitch. The next stitch is a slip, and then 3 half double slip, 3 half double slip, and you continue on, and it makes this cute little pattern. So we're at the last stitch. I'm not gonna lie, you don't need to put another cluster, so I'm just gonna slip stitch again into the last stitch, and there you go. Look at how pretty. I love putting borders on things. It makes everything so much more cute. So we've got the border done. Also, sorry if it's loud outside. Car passes by as I say that. We're going to sew, well, I guess we're gonna crochet the sides together now. Okay, so what you're going to do is, you don't really need to match things up very well. You just need to make sure that the rows are lined up. And since you're going to be working in the side of the stitch, when we're going on the side of the hat, it's going to be a little more difficult to do. But is it focused? I think so. So we have where we left off. And sorry, I have pink paint in my nail. I was spray painting something. We're going to go back in to the same loop that we left off, and we're going to go in the other side, and the last stitch, from whether it was a slip stitch or whatever, we're going to go in this last one. Okay, and then we're going to pull through and we're going to slip stitch. So as you're doing this, you don't want to be really tight, because then your hat is not going to like stretch at all. If you can't identify anything when it comes to where's the middle of the row, where's the start of the row, just sandwich it, like hold it tight like this, hold it aligned, hold all the stripes aligned, and just go in. As long as you're not going too far, too under, you're not gonna see where you're sewing it in, so it doesn't matter that much, because it's not gonna be noticeable that your stitches and stuff aren't even. So if you want to do it like what I'm doing now, where you're just not even looking, you can. All you need to do is make sure that your rows are lined up, and then that's it. So now that we've gone to the part where we were carrying over the different colors of yarn, you want to make sure that you're always putting your slip stitch under the yarn, not over. So for instance, if you wanted to, let's go like that, tuck it under and go under like that, all that's gonna do is that these little strands of yarn is gonna show on the right side of your hat, so that's why we want to keep it above. So you're just gonna slide the hook under that yarn and just continue. So I'm just gonna continue this, and then I'll tell y'all how to turn once we get to the corner. Also, while you're doing it, make sure that you can pull it, because that's how you know that whether or not you're crocheting the side way too tight or too loose. It should have, you know, a little bit of stretch, but if yours doesn't stretch at all, then you're gonna have to undo it and then redo it in a looser tension. finished the last stitch. So now to turn the corner, we're going to go back into the last stitch again, slip stitch again. So there's going to be 2 in there, and then we can like start turning. So you can see that there's going to be your first. Now this is your chain, so you're just going to work into the chain and move the tails out of the way. You're going to work into the chain as you would normally. Okay, so now we're at the end. We're just gonna chain 1, and then see that it's not pulled tight. There's a little bit of stretch, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the yarn off, leaving a pretty decent sized tail for weaving in later. Pull that out. Hat, little hat, and then of course you got your border, so you can make your cute little fold. And there's hat, your ladybug cat ear beanie with the little ruffles or the border. And now the last step, but the worst step, we need to weave in the ends. I'm gonna start with the bottom red one on the side where we sewed it up. So you can see that we have all these little loops, and that's from us carrying it over, carrying it over. So to do this part, we're just gonna go around. So start from the side through, and we're gonna loosely just go around and around and around. We're not gonna go like this back and forth because we do want to go use the tail end to sew over these little loops. There you go. So we're always going to insert from this one side and not the back. And this is just to keep those tied down. Of course, you don't want to make this really tight. Just a loose stitch across, just to make sure that the loops aren't going to get caught on anything and they're not going to be annoying when you're wearing it. And you could do this all in the one color. Sometimes I forget to leave a longer tail on some parts, so I end up having to use a bit of this one, use a bit of this one to go all the way up. And this time I didn't do that. I left a proper size tail. And then there you go. You can stop right here. And then now that we're at where the other tail starts, I'm just gonna tie these around. Don't pull too tight at the first knot because you're gonna gather up the whole hat and scrunch it up. Once you get to the third knot, you can start pulling tight, and then we're at the fourth knot. Pull nice and tight, and then we're going to do the normal weaving in of the tail like you normally would. see how it does flare out a bit, and that's because technically we're increasing every time we make a ruffle. But because I mean, it doesn't really matter. If you don't even want to fold it up, you don't have to. It fits like that, and then you can see that you make your little fold. And it's so cute. It's so cute. I love this. And then if you want to make that little clover, and then you would just sew it on to like one of the sides, or maybe you could even sew it onto the little brim. That would also be really cute. You could get buttons, like black buttons, and then like sew them on to maybe the red stripes or wherever, and have it be like the polka dots, or you know, so many little things that you could do. But yeah, there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. I typically always respond, and it helps me out as well, like to know what I could do better. Yeah, I will see you guys later. Bye.